All right, good afternoon, good evening, depending on how you view 4 o'clock. I'm Betsy Nicholas, Executive Director of Waterkeepers Chesapeake. Thank you all for joining us. And I'm going to hand it over to our friend and colleague, Jeff Holland, who's going to play some fantastic music for you. So let's get it started, Jeff.
Great, thank you, Betsy. I'm up here at 950 feet on the banks of the South River, the Appalachian Trail's just right up the bend here, and I'm outside of my watershed for once, but I want to give a little musical tour of some of the states in our watershed and all of the great people who work to protect our waterways. I want to climb up to the mountaintop where eagles fly above the rocks and ramble with you hand in hand. That's my Maryland. I want to cheer as my own home team scores while Orioles and Ravens soar above the pride of Baltimore. That's my Maryland. Oh, Maryland, my Maryland, from mountains to the sea. Susquehanna flowing down to meet the Chesapeake. Harbor in Annapolis with schooners running free. Oh, Maryland, my Maryland, that's Maryland to me. I want to catch a blue crab in my net as ospreys circle overhead while paddling upon a quiet creek. I want to hear the geese a-swarming o'er the marshes of the eastern shore and see the skipjack sail the Chesapeake. Oh, Maryland, my Maryland, from mountains to the sea. Potomac River flowing down to meet the Chesapeake. People from all over join to keep the free state free. Oh, Maryland, my Maryland, that's Maryland to me. I want to see the seagulls dance a jig upon the shores of Assateague and build a little castle in the sand. Want to count my many blessings in the land of pleasant living. That's my Maryland. That's my Maryland. And now for, thank you, for our friends in Virginia. Go up to the, just south of here, you follow the mountain down and becomes the Blue Ridge. That's where the Potomac and the James all get started. In the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, on the trail of the lonesome pine, in the full moonshine, our hearts entwine, where you carve your names and I carve mine. Oh, June, like the mountains, I'm blue like the pine. I'm waiting for you in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, on the trail of the lonesome pine. And now upriver to Pennsylvania. This is a special song for my friend Ted, the river keeper for the lower Susquehanna River. I learned this song just the other day. Betsy turned me on to a music teacher who wrote this song on YouTube. But I think it really describes, Ted, your feelings toward Exelon and the wonderful agreement they made with the state of Maryland on the next 50 years management of the Conowingo Dam. It goes like this. Just for you, Ted. And now, a toast to all of those wonderful river keepers who are out there every day in the rain and the sunshine and having a great time keeping our rivers clean. You have a cocktail in front of you, I hope. I'm miles away from the nearest liquor store, so all I've got is this little slurp of Catoctin Creek rye. But guys, women, and men who are helping to save the bay, here's to you. Cheers.
Cheers.
And now I'd like to introduce my friend, my colleague, my neighbor, Jesse Iliff. Jesse, take it away.
Hey, thanks, Jeff. Now I have one more song that I know I have memorized the words to. It's been a while since I've laughed that much at a Zoom or webinar meeting of any kind. So thanks for those songs, Jeff. Thanks for all of you who have joined us tonight. It looks like we've got a really good turnout. That's great to see. And some of our speakers to come, some of our elected officials. And especially thanks to the staff at Waterkeepers Chesapeake and to all the individual waterkeepers out there working to keep the bay and the coastal bays clean. It's my pleasure to work alongside you. My name is Jesse Iliff. I'm the Southwest and Road Riverkeeper. I also have the distinct pleasure of being chair of the board of Waterkeepers Chesapeake. In case those some of you are new to our organization and to the broader movement, I wanted to give a little bit of background. Back in the earlier part of this century, the 2000s, the number of waterkeeper programs in and around the Chesapeake Bay was really starting to take off. They were growing in number, and it became clear that there was a lot of collaborative work that we could all be doing, uniting our voices together in pursuit of clean water. So in 2007, Waterkeepers Chesapeake was formed as an informal association of waterkeepers having regular meetings, talking about statewide and regional issues that affected all of them. And it quickly became clear that there was a role to be filled to unite our voices and amplify our messaging to the public. And so in 2012 is when Waterkeepers Chesapeake became an official 501c3. Today, there are 17 waterkeepers programs in the Chesapeake and Coastal Bays area, and we fight every day for swimmable, fishable water for everybody. And for those of us that have freshwater sections of our rivers, drinkable water that everybody can use to preserve their health and well-being. We are the on-the-water experts and advocates for our local waterways. And the COVID crisis has really brought home to us all, not just waterkeepers, but everybody, the importance of stable, resilient, healthy communities. And we think that waterkeepers serve an essential part of that by protecting our right to clean water, our rights to enjoy the collective resources that are out there for all of us to pursue our happiness and our health however we can in the cleaner waters of the world. The Chesapeake Bay region has over 18 million residents within the watershed, and Waterkeepers Chesapeake is at the forefront of some of the most important issues affecting the watershed as a whole and those communities, especially that are closest to the bay and see the effects of pollution all the time. Specifically, we have worked on advocacy campaigns, legislative campaigns that benefit the entire region. We were able to ban fracking in Maryland a few years ago. There are efforts underway to, as Jeff mentioned, ensure a fair resolution to the Conowingo Dam relicensing issue. And we work together to strengthen the municipal stormwater permits that govern how stormwater is handled throughout all the jurisdictions in the state. But when policy isn't enough, Waterkeepers Chesapeake is there to stand up and fight it out in court. There are a number of lawsuits underway where Waterkeepers Chesapeake is a party. In fact, just yesterday, we joined a suit with a number of other nonprofit partners, including the Animal Legal Defense Fund, to fight against concentrated animal feeding operations. Some people call them CAFOs, and prevent the voluminous, nasty pollution that comes out of a lot of these facilities. And there's an effort underway currently to relax the standards that they need to operate under, and Waterkeepers Chesapeake is helping to fight that. We help to support each other in lots of ways also. sharing skills, sharing information. A couple years ago, we had a conference, and one of our own, the Upper Potomac Riverkeeper, Brent Walls, showed us how to monitor pollution and even take water samples via drones, unmanned aerial vehicles. Patuxent Riverkeeper Fred Tutman, who you'll hear from later this evening, helping walk us through diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice issues as they pertain to the environmental movement. Our James Riverkeeper, Jamie Brunko, helping to explain how to use mapping tools to research and track underground or above ground storage tanks with toxic chemicals and help us pursue our enforcement work when those tanks rupture or leak. So we unite all of our skills and strengths to amplify our messaging and to increase our impact. But during such an historic year as 2020 and times like these where everybody is facing challenges that can sometimes seem insurmountable, a group like Waterkeepers Chesapeake is just so vital. They've helped us, being waterkeepers, rallying support for our programs. We're each individual programs working together as a collective, but many of you may be familiar with the PPP loans that came out as part of the CARES Act in response to the COVID crisis. Waterkeepers Chesapeake was there learning the ins and outs of that to help these individual nonprofits navigate the process and make sure that we could continue doing the essential work that we do throughout the duration thus far of the coronavirus pandemic. We also are, a lot of us are just good friends. We keep space together to air our problems, explain our challenges, and help work through the organizational issues that we all face, the political issues that we all face, the fundraising issues that we all face. And Waterkeepers Chesapeake is that catalyst that helps bring all of our individual strengths and resources and capacities together to form a whole that is greater than the sum of our parts. And I can't thank the staff enough. I know I did earlier, but I want to just say one more time, thank you all for all that you do to unite our voices and to strengthen our work and broaden our impact. And thanks to all of you who are attending this virtual event with us from wherever you are in the watershed. We can't thank you enough for your support. We hope that you will continue to recognize the value in our organization and to support our efforts going forward, because we've started to make some progress on the Chesapeake's recovery, but there's still a whole lot of work to be done. And the more people that we can bring into our tent and make an inclusive space for all of the communities within the Chesapeake watershed, the better off we're all going to be. So thank you all very much. And now I will hand it off to our MC to hear from some of our other waterkeepers.
All right, thanks, Jesse. I appreciate that. Was a great intro. I'm Mark Steiner. Good to be here with you all. And we're about to have a panel discussion. And I introduced you to the panelists. We can begin our conversation. And I want to say, first of all, thanks to all this. We've launched here a $40,000 in 40 days as a fundraising campaign to this virtual event. So help us build on this year's success by making a donation today, right now, as you hear this panel unfold. And so far, we've raised $8,195 towards that goal, which means we have a little ways to go. So make your contribution today, and you can do that at connect.clickandpledge.com, and you can see it right there. And please join us and show your support today for all the work that's going on here. And to talk about this work, let's think about where we are at this very moment. I mean, we're living in really unprecedented times. It's estimated that 23 million people have hit the streets to protest racism and police brutality in this country. And while we're in the midst of this COVID pandemic, it's all taking place at that same time, and was brought to us by habitat loss. And who knows what viruses lurk to be unleashed by the melting permafrost. Our lives have been interrupted and changed, and we also face the gravest political crisis in the nation's living memory. So how does this affect us here in the Chesapeake? How does it change and affect the work of the river keepers, the coast keepers, now and in the future? All of our panelists have spoken to this. Fred Tutman, who is a Patuxent River keeper, has spoken eloquently about race and the environmental movement. Kathy Phillips, the Assateague coast keeper, has made us all aware of the spread of COVID because of the poultry industry that's devastating the Latino community. Mark Frondorf, the Shenandoah River keeper, has talked about how equitable work is critical, and Tim Trumbauer, who's Cheshire Waterkeeper and part of the Shore Rivers Network, has gone beyond the river to look at housing and equity along the river. So I say welcome to all the panelists, and it's good to have you all with us here. Are we all logged on there? Good, there we are. I see everybody. People are popping up. There's Kathy Phillips, and there's Tim, and I guess pretty soon they'll have Fred. Are you there?
Working on it. There we go. Slow computer.
You're here. That's good. That's a good thing. So let me just begin, Fred. I mean, you in our chats leading up to this conversation, you really laid out some really tough, hard, and serious conversations about race and river keepers and the environmental movement and where we go. So launch into that for us. Let's begin there.
So I've learned or observed over time that the riverkeeper model, I think, has a high bar in terms of our capacity to represent and speak on behalf of and connect to our watersheds, because our movement awards exclusive jurisdictions. There's only one riverkeeper per watershed. So it's not as though others can step up and say, I'm the riverkeeper too. So in effect, we have this obligation to make sure we are as representative as possible, which isn't easy to do, right? Because these are complicated social scenarios, complicated watersheds. But that's huge because not everyone sees the same thing. You know, in Jesse's setup, he was talking about, you know, the problems we all face, and we all face those problems very differently based on our circumstances, our means, our situation, our surroundings. So I mean, maybe I'll just kind of leave it there, but my sense of things is that waterkeepers are really on the cutting edge of being truly connective in these watersheds, right? If we don't talk to the folks who have possession of the worst problems, you know, as well as the other end of the spectrum as well, then we would be failing in terms of our capacity to really be reflective, representative, inclusive in these watersheds.
So let's take it beyond that. I mean, one of the things that you talked about here, I think, Fred, and I want other panelists to pick up on this, I mean, is that you've talked a lot about how the environmental movement and even the riverkeepers in general are a predominantly white movement, and we're in a very different world today. We're in a very different time when the struggles of people around environmental justice and community are really changing the way we approach the work that everybody does. So let's explore a minute together and how that affects your work.
Sure. So one of my frustrations.
Go ahead.
So one of my frustrations is that environmental justice is usually its own bullet, right? To me, all of the work we should be doing should have at its heart the willingness to create equity and justice. The same problems that we're fighting in pollution happen to be the exact same problems that we face in a lot of these other social problems: poverty, you know, disenfranchisement, racism. They really are all really connected, in my view. These are things that we really should be working on, literally embedded in all of our work. And yet there's a tendency, I think, in a movement that is predominantly white, is for people to work on the problems they see. And so it occurs to me sometimes people can't see the same problems because of that divide, right? A lot of our work is helping, again, connect these communities and these people so that each other, so that we can actually see what each one another see and work on common problems. So that's really where the environmental justice thing comes in. It really needs to be and should be at the heart of all the stuff we're doing, not its own little footnote. Oh, we did some other stuff, and you know, right, by de facto, all that other stuff, is that the environmental injustice, right? If the environmental justice is in this box, what's in all the other boxes that we're working on? Are those not so just? You see the problem, maybe it's a philosophical problem, but it's one that I've really struggled with in this work, and my colleagues here have too as well, certainly.
So, I mean, go ahead, Kathy, go ahead, please.
Yeah, working down here on the lower shore, where we are very rural, but we have a massive presence by the poultry industry and other agricultural industries, where we have African American and mostly Latinx farm workers out in the fields, exposed to pesticides. And then, of course, those who are working inside the slaughterhouses down here in lower Delaware and on the lower shore. And that was something that COVID-19 just shined a huge spotlight on, was the inability of, for instance, in the slaughterhouses, for the poultry companies to realize just how Route 13 between Accomack County, Virginia, where the largest processing plants are, and Sussex County, Delaware, where there are 2 other processing plants, plus some in between, that this major highway would just become a conduit for the COVID virus, where these farm workers and slaughterhouse workers were being exposed on a daily basis. They needed to go to work. They had to go to work. There were no provisions for them to stay home, to take a leave of absence. And so they were being exposed on a daily basis and then taking it back to their communities. And so we had a huge impact here on the lower shore, and it wasn't to the white communities. It was to our African American and Latinx communities. And the companies finally began to take some responsibility, but it was really too little too late. And we had a massive hotspot down here on the Eastern Shore for quite some time. And quite frankly, a number of us knew that was coming. And it was just frustrating that, like, our partners at CATA, the Farm Workers Support Committee here on the lower shore, was trying so hard to get the word out and tried to educate the people that they communicate with on a daily basis to take precautions, and it just wasn't happening.
So, I mean, and taking from that, and Tim, let me go to you, and then Mark, I want you to jump in this as well. Obviously, I wonder how what we're facing today, what's been outlined in a sense by Fred and Kathy, and what's been outlined by the larger national picture that clearly affects all of us right now. How does this change the nature of your work? And that's something for all of us to explore. What does it change in how you organize, how you approach things, and what we're affected by? Tim?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. And I mean, it's changed a lot, and a lot's changed in the past, well, since the beginning of 2020, really. And at Shore Rivers, we've been to the trainings, we've been participating, we've been trying to be good community members and things like that. We've really benefited all the river keepers at Shore Rivers and Waterkeepers Chesapeake from Fred's leadership at our annual conference and some of these issues. But in the past few months, we've recognized that the time to kind of listen and train has ended, and it's a time to act and do things. One of the things that we did was that we actually appointed a director level position to deal with equity and justice issues. And, as Fred said, there's a risk when you do that. You're creating, okay, now we've solved the problem. We've appointed someone to deal with this. But fortunately, the person who's in that position, her name's Darren Tillman, is extremely strong with these issues and very conversant. And she is, one of her goals is to create an empathetic organization. That's one of the terms that she uses. So it's not about considering equity and justice, inclusion, diversity in these little pockets and these little issues. It's about creating an empathetic organization that considers these things throughout all the work we do, both our internal and external programs. And she likes to share a quote. I'm just going to read it quickly, that I think really sums up a lot of what Fred and Kathy were saying. And it's from Wendell Berry, and it's from 1969. And it's talking about social justice and environmental exploitation. So the mentality that exploits and destroys a natural environment is the same that abuses racial and economic minorities. The mentality that destroys a watershed and then panics at the threat of flood is the same mentality that gives institutionalized insult to Black people and then panics at the prospect of race riots. So, to me, that's kind of a powerful statement. And so we need to take, the greed and exploitation that's causing this, and then convert that to empathy and stewardship. And that's really what we've been trying to do at Shore Rivers, and that has resulted in strong partnerships where we would not normally have had partnerships. And we found a lot of common ground. I'm not sure if we're going to talk about our attainable housing project now or later, but
yeah, we do want to hear about that. That's really important.
Yeah, so I'll just quickly mention that. So that was just a partnership that came up through some of this work and some of Darren's great outreach work about Kent Attainable Housing, which is a new nonprofit that's developing workforce housing on the Eastern Shore and in Kent County specifically. And we are involved because we're bringing some foundational funding and expertise to create what we're calling, as part of our River Friendly Yards program, a river friendly landscape. Now, whoever's going to live in this house may or may not have an interest in the river, but by providing a river-friendly landscape, we can reach a lot of common goals. So we know that, first of all, a river-friendly landscapes, we're talking native plants and rain gardens and things like that. It's good for the river. It also is beautiful and it's enriching for the people that live there. It creates habitat, and it's also low maintenance. So these are all things that kind of benefit each other that we should all care about. So finding these connections, these partnerships and these opportunities where we can meet common goals. And again, it's all part of being an empathetic organization and considering these social justice issues in every aspect of our work. And that's what we're working hard to do. I will say, it's difficult, right? So we know that we're not perfect at it. And say it's a 10-step process, we might be on the second or third rung, but we're doing our best to listen and keep climbing up the ladder and always do better.
Mark, why don't you leap in?
Yeah, it's really interesting listening to Fred and Kathy and Tim, the overlap that's here. Potomac Riverkeeper Network, this is our 20th anniversary this year, and we've been fighting for clean water and holding polluters accountable up and down our 14,000-mile watershed. And we never really stopped to consider whether all people are suffering from pollution equally, or whether there more needs to be done in certain areas because of the inequitable suffering from this pollution. And so we're starting to think carefully about where and how we do our work and who we seek to serve. And we have a duty as a public interest organization, like Fred said, to truly work for the public interest. And that means taking a more equitable and an inclusive approach to attract and serve all people in our watershed. And in some instances, it might mean that we need to take a seat on the back bench and just give our support where we can and let folks lead who are suffering the fight in their backyard and in their neighborhood, and help where we can. We have 14,000 square miles. We have 3 river keepers. We can't be everywhere at once. And so we really need to rely upon the people in our communities to work with us, and in some instances take the lead on a lot of these different issues. Also internally to PRKN, we're in the process of developing a case statement that sort of lays out why we need to do more. And we're also working on revising our policy handbook that's going to lay out the JEDI principles and how that's applicable to our board, to our staff, to our partners and programs, and how collectively it's going to reflect the diverse makeup of our watershed that we seek to protect. And in terms of some of the things that we've been doing, specifically, for the last few years out here in the Shenandoah Valley, as Kathy mentioned, there's a lot of poultry being produced. We have 159 million chickens a year that are grown out here in the Shenandoah Valley. Almost all of the people working in the poultry processing plants are Hispanic. And so for the last 3 years, in partnership with the U.S. Forest Service, we've been holding an event, Rio Palooza. It's a bilingual outreach to the Latinx community in the Shenandoah Valley, as well as the DC metropolitan area. And it's a celebration of the Shenandoah River, National Hispanic Heritage Month. And, we try to, just have a super fun day with fishing and tubing and rafting and music. Last year we had a Latin Grammy Award winner, Mr. G, come out and perform at our event. And so we're really trying to reach out and engage. And we've also been having Spanish interpreters at a number of our River Palooza events the last few years to encourage people of the entire area to come out and participate in our events. And so, is that enough? Of course, it's not enough, but these are the sort of the critical first steps that we've been undertaking to do more in terms of equitable work and ensure that it really reflects a diverse community that we seek to serve.
So let me kind of probe some maybe difficult questions here about the future. I mean, if we think about where we are in this country right now, and how it's reflected in the place that we live here in the Chesapeake region. If we think about, as I said earlier when I introduced everybody, that 23 million people have been in the streets of the United States this is unprecedented, to protest racial injustice, racism, and brutality. And so I have several different parts to this, and we have time for at least a little bit into each one of them. But let's talk about that part. How does this change the nature of your work? It has to affect the work. I mean, first of all, when you think about the Chesapeake, we live and we work in an area that has a deep, deep, deep racist past and present. And that's where we live. So how does what's happening now affect the work you do? How does it change the work you do? How should it change the work you do?
You know, Mark,
So,
I'm gonna throw it. Go ahead,
first.
Kathy. Go ahead, Kathy. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
You're Fred. You're Tim. Hey, it's this clean
That's
water
excuse.
gin and tonic that I'm enjoying here right now. That's even more aggressive. But to that point, Mark, we held a town hall event recently, and it was supposed to be in person, and then COVID hit, and so we had to pivot to a virtual event. But one of the things that we have found is that so many of these communities and their community leaders who have been in the fight for years down here, because when you talk about one of the last counties to integrate in the entire United States, I think, was Worcester County, my home, sadly. Right. But the leaders down here in these various communities, the African American community, the Latinx community, they are up against such odds down here that they often feel totally powerless. And we found that by hosting town halls, and you facilitated a couple of those with us, Mark, that by bringing these communities and these community leaders together and at least providing them with an introduction to public health experts, to legal advisors, to other community leaders in other areas who have been fighting the same fight for a long time, it actually made them feel that they did have some power, and it energized them. And we won some victories here and there down here on the lower shore as a result of that. And so that's how I see Assateague Coastal Trust's role in this current situation that we have. We've been down here in this watershed for 50 years, trying to protect and preserve this rural way of life that used to be really clean air and clean water, and we want to try and keep it that way. But I think by just assisting communities, and then now I can't remember, it was Mark or Tim who said that once they feel empowered, then these community leaders just take off. And in fact, you're going to be meeting a couple of these community leaders later tonight with the award to the Concerned Citizens Against Industrial CAFOs. They moved mountains. And so I think that's where our role should be, is we have these resources. So let's share them and just offer answer questions, offer advice. I mean, I find that's the best thing that we can do here in order to keep that pressure on our polluting industries down here on the lower shore to be held accountable and to do more for clean water and clean air and healthy communities.
But what were you about to say?
So, as strange as it might sound, this is an opportunity for me as a Black man in a predominantly white movement for, frankly, the last 30-some years, to talk about a subject that is very easy to talk about generally in Black and brown communities, but has always been difficult for me as a Black man to stand in front of a group of white audience and talk about race. It's a loaded thing, right? I mean, it's a difficult thing to do. So in a way, this scenario we're in now gives me a license to talk about something that we've always really needed to talk about, because it's real. It's really real that we have very different experiences sometimes in this country based on our, race, gender, all sorts of considerations. And yet it was the hardest thing in the world to talk about in a room from environmentalists who thought we were changing the subject away from nature and talking about some other stuff that wasn't in their mission statement. So it is a license to have some really good conversations. And I'm sure I hope it's not a short-term thing. I mean, I hope, it won't run its course and then people go back to doing what they really want to do. These organizations and these movements really have to change. There's really no way around it if they want the full participation, frankly, a commensurate level of participation to move these heavy lifts on these issues we want to work on. We're not going to fix this planet with just white people with money doing all the work. That's just not going to happen. So we've got to do this. It's going to be painful right? Because it's, look, the last thing I'll say on this, I think my mother's on this loop. She might remember this. When I was a kid, I went to a PTA meeting. And I was a kid who grew up in segregation in busing. And at the first PTA meeting I ever went to, a white teacher stood up and sang the song "Getting to Know You" to a room full of black people, which was kind of corny, but it was a place to start. So I'm excited to see people getting started. Let's finish the job. This is important. There's a lot of interest in what we do with these movements in Black and brown communities and BIPOC communities. A lot of interest. They want to be a part of this. They have to be a part. They are a part of this. We are all a part of this. So how come we can't talk about it? Now we can.
It brings a question of mine, but Mark, you look like you wanted to jump in and say something. At least your body language told me that.
No, I was just going to build that. I completely agree with with Fred that it can be a little bit of an awkward conversation, but I sort of feel like it's akin to a car stuck in a ditch, and you got all this inertia just sitting there, and you need to push it a little bit and get it going. And once it gets going, you can get it moving. But right now we're at that part where we're all putting our shoulders against the bumper, trying to get it out of the ditch and get it moving.
So, well, I'll wait for my next question. Tim, did you want to jump in with anything with this?
No, I mean, I agree with what Fred said and what others have said. And for what's changed for us is it's really changed the way that we view our mission and what we value and where we're investing our energy. Where we're a strategic organization and we spend a lot of time reducing nutrient and sediment pollution. That's what we do. But now we're meeting with community members that don't necessarily have that same goal and recognize these partnerships that ultimately make our mission stronger, even though they're not directly related to what we thought our goal might have been a few years ago. So I think, again, it's just like it's infiltrating our organization in a good way, and that's what's changed.
I was, as you all were talking, one of the things that struck me was going back to my a hat I have not worn in years, but I wore very happily many moons ago, which is that of an organizer, both as a community organizer and union organizer. And one of the things that struck me back then was that we ran a tenants union group, the first one in Baltimore that was interracial in South Baltimore before it became gentrified Federal Hill. It was just South Baltimore. And you brought together Black and white communities that never really worked together or spoke together or did anything together. They were divided by Charles Street in Baltimore and they never crossed. So here we are. You river keepers, coast keepers are in a unique role because your constituencies cross a lot of political boundaries, a lot of racial boundaries. And when you think about that also wrapped up in COVID and everything from so many diseases that we're confronted with, COVID being the latest, most horrific one, coming out of loss of habitat. And so I'm curious how those things may mesh in your work. Do you see your roles changing in the sense because of the way these two things converge in terms of bringing community together to fight together around certain issues to change the nature of what we face? I mean, could this fundamentally change the nature of your work, what we're facing now in the future?
Well,
Kathy,
I think
go ahead. Oh no, Mark, go ahead. Then we'll go to Kathy.
Okay. No, I was just going to say that one way that it's fundamentally changed the nature of our work is that people are seriously realizing the importance of nature and the importance of the environment in their lives. Parks, state parks, national parks, local parks, everybody's coming out to use them. They're realizing how important they are for enjoyment, to engage in social distancing and still be able to interact with one another. And before, there was competition for, everything, electronics and films and what have you. But now there is this growing realization of how important parks and the environment are, and the importance of clean water and clean air. And this is an opportunity for us to really take advantage of that and advance our work in a lot of these different areas.
Yeah, I mean, unquestionably. I mean, we run a visitor center. You know, the one thing everybody seems to want to do in an epidemic is go outdoors. They want to get next to the river badly. And we're not in a position to help them do that necessarily in an epidemic, but it really brings home, wow, we are so connected. We are such creatures of our own aquariums, right? You know, huge. So again, it's another license to make some stronger connections. In my universe, people are much kinder to each other right now. Granted, I realize in the newspapers it doesn't look that way, but people are realizing we need each other. We need a warm pulse, yeah, you know, around us. So it is an opportunity for us to reconnect to each other, as well as, you know, opportunities to work on that common theme too that everybody has in common: nature. Hugely spiritually connected to nature, most of us, even those of us who don't know it.
So the question is, I mean, I think Kathy, I'm going to ask you to let you lead this off here. I mean, can you take this love of where we all live and protecting the water and the environment around us, this fight that people have in the communities against racism and social justice, and bring these diverse communities together? I mean, how does that? What role do Waterkeepers play in this? I mean, there's the white community, the Latino community, the Black community, but beyond that, it's also the conservative community and the liberal community and the community on the left. They're all up here together. Is there an organizing opportunity here that didn't exist before?
Yes, there definitely is. Just to share an interesting experience during this whole COVID sort of lockdown, and then when you know, the racial tensions exploded. Our office is in a little town called Berlin, Maryland. It's about 7 miles in from the coastline from Ocean City. And Berlin is just a wonderful community, but it too sadly has a history of racism, and again, divided by a highway. And so you have the eastern side of the town of Berlin on the east side of Route 113, and that is our African American community. And then on the western side is the downtown area for Berlin, which has come over the last 15, 20 years, has had this huge renaissance and is just a fantastic small town Main Street community. One of the things that, one of my hopes coming out of all of this for the next couple of years is, number one, a change in the leadership in the town of Berlin, because the demographics has changed to a much younger demographic. And they are the ones who are most interested, both Black and white members of the Berlin community they're the ones, the young, and I say young, I'm showing my age, but you know, those who are 40, you know, late 40s, you know, they want to see a change. And we have an opportunity to bring these two sides, these two communities together by renovating the community center over on the east side of Route 113 in Berlin. And there's land there that can produce community gardens, a fantastic area where we can, there's already basketball courts. There are people in Berlin who are already talking about wanting to not only have a community garden, but other activities that would bring everybody together. And there's a great park right across the road. So, you know, I see the environment actually being the catalyst for perhaps finally bringing East and West Berlin together. We recently had, the town recently hosted a Black Lives Matter march down Main Street, which was an absolute first for the town of Berlin, for Worcester County. And it was a very successful march and had a wonderful turnout. I kind of knew everybody that was there marching down Main Street. But again, this really showed the issue that we have a diverse community down here. We all want to live we want to live in a wonderful area with clean air, clean water. We want our neighborhoods and communities to be healthy. We all share that goal, no matter what side of 113 you live on. And so I have hope for the next few years that we'll see something happening here in Berlin, and maybe that can be a showcase for other communities in the state too, and that's not being led by me or by Assateague Coastal Trust. This is being led by the community itself, but I'm just proud that we'll hopefully have a little place in there somewhere to be part of that movement.
Tim, didn't leave you out here.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think that really the big thing, that opportunity that we have here is so much more engagement on local issues. Whether it's environmental issues or social justice issues. Chestertown and my particular watershed does not like change. Anyone that's lived here long will tell you we don't like change. We like our rural environment. We like our what my friend Darren calls our micropolitan community, and our rolling rural environment, and we don't like change. Yet, right now, Chestertown, in the heart of downtown, has an enormous street painted with Black Lives Matter, and there's another street in town painted with I Can't Breathe. And that, I don't think, ever would have happened before this, and the fact that that was approved by the mayor and town council. This is a town that spent 2 years arguing about the size and lighting of our local theater, right? And what would be allowed. And that, ultimately, I think the sign got denied and they had to just use a letter marquee. Yet now we have a Black Lives Matter and I Can't Breathe murals down the center of town. So that level of engagement has changed. And we see that in our environmental work too. I mean, people, I think, have been pushed to the brink. And, when someone might have thought my voice doesn't matter before, now they recognize that their voice really matters. Their voice is all they have. So, we're getting a lot more interest in things directly related to water quality in our work, as well as, a lot of the social justice work. And I think and again, like what Fred started out with and what the quote I had from Wendell Berry said, it's the same problem, right? It's greed and exploitation. It's causing these same problems. So, we need to harness the energy that we have right now and use it more for empathy and more for stewardship, and that's what we've been working on.
So we only have a few minutes left here. So and in this conversation, which has been really rich to me, and I'd like to just let you all conclude, each one of you, to talk about how you think this moment we're in changes the nature of your work, changes the nature of the Riverkeepers' work. I mean, it clearly is going to have an effect. And let me just go around the room as we have it, and I'll go Kathy, Tim, Mark, Fred.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it will change our work in some ways, because we've always walked the walk. We've always been a fairly diverse and engaged organization that, frankly, took most of our work to where we thought the worst problems were to be found, which, frankly, were exactly those BIPOC communities. But actually, the challenge has been to convince whites that they were part of our movement too. I mean, odd as it seems, I think people have assumed that I'm only interested in working in those other places. But the truth is, the underlying community of Patuxent Riverkeeper has always had the expectation that if you go to our events, you see a little bit of everybody and everybody's welcome. So at least the culture is embedded. So I'm not sure that we're going to change what we do. We want to ramp up what we do. I think there's enhanced interest in my job, which is exciting. Like maybe there's a successor to be found out there, because in a way, this conversation the nation's having authenticates African American environmentalism in some ways. It didn't need authentication, but maybe it did. You know what I mean? Just in some sectors, maybe people really didn't believe we were interested in the environment in the first place. So it raises the profile that we can go bird watching and doing all this other stuff that we do, that people simply assume we were mimicking the white people, which has certainly not really been the case. But I don't think we've had that conversation.
Mark Frondorf.
Yeah, I think it breathes new life into our movement and the work and the issues that we represent and strive to overcome. And so I think that this isn't this is an opportunity for us to come together and to reach out across all walks of life to protect our rivers and to protect our environment, and also to listen and to find out what's going on in other communities. We had the Atlantic Coast Pipeline down here in southwestern Virginia, and we defeated it. And it was 600 miles cutting across all of Virginia and down into North Carolina to get cheap frack gas to the international market. And it brought together black and white, young and old, rich and poor, farmers with land in their families for 7 generations were working with tree huggers. Everybody down in this area are Republicans, and everybody recognized what they had to lose, and everybody came together to protect our environment. And so we learned what we can do, and so I'm optimistic that we can do more. And I think that we just need to be smart and to take this moment and to reach out and to make it happen with everyone, not just our old familiar friends.
Jim?
I think our goal, and one thing I think that we're going to change is we want our organization to be more like Fred's, right? So to be honest, historically, looking around, it was not a very diverse community, our tent, through no intention. Like, we've always tried to say the right things and do the right things, but it just somehow the magic never happened. And this is now, like I said before, has forced us to act. And before we might have been, scared to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, but now we realize that, we need to do something. So I think that what's going to change for us is that, again, that we are creating this empathetic organization, but what we really do is we want our organization to look like our community. And we're going to do what it takes to include those voices. And again, Fred said this, I can't remember if he said it today, but he's been really good at pointing out that, it's not our role to force our mission and make, different people care about what we care about. It's to listen to what they care about and find that common ground. And I think that's the approach that we're taking.
Kathy Phillips on the coast, wrap it up for us.
So yeah, I don't know that it's going to radically change what Asti Coastal Trust does, but I do hope that that we can do more to bring these diverse communities together and share their stories, because when they do come together and share their stories, they find out how much they do have in common. So while it might be flooded streets that is concerning one neighborhood, and it might be plastic in the ocean and on their beach that is annoying or is problematic to another neighborhood, the more that we can do through our town halls, through our community group get-togethers, this COVID crisis has just been killing me and killing my staff and our board, because we're people. We are just always out there with the folks in our communities, and we haven't had that opportunity to be face to face for so many months. That's been really difficult, but it has given us time to really reflect on the work that we do. I want to really ramp up what we do with our Coast Kids program, because that summer camp that we've been doing for so many years, that camp is an opportunity to get kids from these underserved communities actually down to the water. They may only be 7 miles away from the coastline, but a lot of them have never even been, have never seen the beach. And so by, with our donors, and especially our donors and the Community Foundation of the Eastern Shore, we're able to offer scholarships and work with some of our local nonprofits to get more kids from rich, poor, black, white, whatever it may be, get them to the water, get them to appreciate and explore and enjoy the wonders of our local waterways. And so I know I want to definitely work on expanding our summer camp, because the kids, that's the hope. That's the future. They're our next stewards of the environment.
Well, it's been a great conversation. So Kathy, Fred, Tim, Mark, and Fred, thank you all so much for doing this. And we're going to great conversation. We're turning this back over to the folks here. Things popping up now, and making sure you all bring the money in the door. Thank you all for the conversation.
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
I want to say thank you for an amazing panel discussion. It's just really great to talk about all the work you're doing, and thank you, Mark, for hosting this discussion. As many people probably know, this has been a tough year. It's been a tough year for waterkeepers. It's been a tough year for our friends and families. I feel like in a few years, 2020 is going to be a curse word, and we're going to recognize the pain that we all lived through, and that we're perhaps stronger for it afterwards. But right now, it's been really tough. From coworkers, colleagues, friends, and family getting sick, some even passing away, to complete disruption in how we do our work. As some of the panelists were just saying, we're used to having direct contact with our community and with each other. Our global conference in Miami was canceled. You know, the waterkeepers haven't been able to get together. And even this event, we were supposed to be at the beautiful Audubon Historic Mansion and Wood End Sanctuary to be enjoying nature and being together for this celebration of clean water. So it's been really tough. And another, factor that just came up this past weekend is my role model through most of my life, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, passed away. So it just felt like yet another sucker punch in terms of a tough year. But during this time, one of the things that's been amazing is to see the strength of our waterkeepers, that despite all of these difficulties, all of these challenges, they're still working every day to protect their communities from pollution. And many of those threats have been increasing and growing, with the EPA giving a free pass to polluters during the COVID crisis, to Exelon failing to operate fish lifts, resulting in ongoing problems of shad fisheries. Even to the fact that the Maryland General Assembly had to end early, and a lot of bills and priorities that we had worked on for years just ended up dying in that moment because of the COVID crisis. But our waterkeepers understand their role and their importance. When we were under state quarantines, they sought permission to go out and still do water quality monitoring to ensure that people getting out in those waters were still safe and protected. We continued on with lawsuits, ending up in things like a great settlement to ensure that the EPA moves forward with setting limitations on toxins in our drinking water. We've continued on Conowingo Dam and many of the issues that we've been fighting on for many years. And our waterkeepers have had really substantial success from we're going to talk about Fred a little bit more later, but some regulations being developed for the Public Service Commission in response to an equal protection suit he brought forward. And we have stepped up and we've been there. So I hope everyone is able to appreciate how passionate and amazing these waterkeepers are. During difficult times like this, when you think, the world's against you and you're having a lot of trouble moving forward, hearing that passion every day, working with such an amazing group of leaders who are out there protecting their communities, that's what makes me work every day, to help them, to assist them, to get a further reach on all of our work. And, really just work to refocus what we're doing. And sometimes, as we just heard in the panel discussion, we don't necessarily just work on water issues. While water is our most important thing, and honestly, it is the most important thing in life, you can't exist without it. a lot of times there are related issues. We're about protecting communities. We're about protecting public health. And sometimes the most obvious piece of that may not be as clear. For example, we started our Fair Farms campaign back in 2015 because of agricultural pollution, but we recognized that it was the system that was the problem. So unless we started to look at these rigged aspects of our food system, we weren't ever going to be able to actually solve the problem of agricultural pollution. So we dug in there. And is that a longer term problem to solve? Absolutely. But at the same point, we know that we're not just putting band-aids on the problems. We're actually fixing the system that leads to these inequalities. And again, the COVID crisis, just really shined a highlight on how much we depend on food from other areas. I think we all were a little surprised when, we finally got through the line in the grocery store and realized that there was no chicken available. Yet we're growing millions of chickens on the eastern shore of Maryland. So I think that there's, big systemic changes that we're going to have to look into. But we're the right people for this job. Waterkeepers are doing this not for the big money or anything else or the glory. It's because of caring about the work and what we do every day. And so if you can do it, please donate to help us in this tough year. It's been a tough year financially as well. We'd really appreciate it, whether you can donate $25 or $2,500. All of it matters and makes things easier for us. And so now I'm going to pass you off to the wonderful Wendy and Steve Jazz Band. They're going to play a little bit of music for you.
Hello, everyone. We tried to pick sort of a water-related set of music, so here we go. Every time it rains, pennies from heaven. Don't you know each cloud contains pennies from heaven? You'll find your fortune falling all over town. Be sure that your umbrella is upside down. Trade them for a package of sunshine and flowers. If you want the things you love, you must have showers. So when you hear thunder, don't run under a tree. There'll be pennies from heaven for you and me. So when you hear it thunder, don't run under a tree. There'll be pennies from heaven for you. Pennies from heaven for me. There'll be pennies from heaven for you and me. Okay, so now we have a little Jobim for you. Hold on. One, two, three, four. If you're right, well, that's a lovely way to be. Aware of things your heart alone to see. The fundamental laws in the scope, whatever you can dream a dream together. You can't deny. Gotta find the rising sea. Don't fight the moon, stars above. Don't fight me. The fundamental law in the scope, whenever you can dream a dream together. When I saw you first, the time was 3:30. When your eyes met mine, it was eternity. By now we know the wave is on its way to me. Just catch the wave, don't be afraid of loving me. The fundamental law in the scope, whenever two can dream a dream together. La 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 la. When I met you first, the time was 3:30. When your eyes met mine, it was eternity. By now we know the wave is on its way to me. Just catch the wave, don't be afraid of loving me. Fundamental loneliness, whenever two can dream a dream together. We can dream a dream together. Oh, together. Together. Yeah, Waterkeepers Chesapeake. Look at y'all. Woo, together. Okay. I think we're going to do one more song. This is one of my favorite songs of all time. It's called The Waters of March, Aguas de Marzo by Jobim. Another Jobim classic. It's epic. I hope you enjoy it. Okay. I got my note. Okay. E pau, e pedra, e o fim do caminho, e o resto te tocou, pouco sozinho, em caso de vidro, e a vida e o sol, e a noite e a morte, e o laço e o sol, e verava no campo, numa madeira, cainga, candeia, matita pereira, e vedere di vento, tomora ribancera, mistério profundo em que eu não quero, e o vento tentando. E no fim da ladeira, e ali em o peixe da cumeira, e a chuva chovendo, e confessa que pega nas águas de março, e o fim da canseira, e o pé, e o chão, e a masticadeira, passarina na mão, pedra de atiradeira, eu me abro no céu, me abro no chão, e brincado com a ponte, um pedaço de pão, e tudo gosto, e o fim do caminho. No rosto desgosto, e um pouco sozinho, é strepe, é prego, é uma ponte, é um pingo pingando, é uma ponte, é queijo, é gesto, uma prata brilhando, é a luz da manhã, é tijolo secando, é a lei, é o dia, é o fim da picada, cara mexicana, é estilhaço na estrada, dentro de casa, e o forno na cama, é o carro pisado, é a lama, é um passo, é uma ponte, é um sacanara, é um resto de mar, la luz da manhã, salva de março, fechando o verão, é promessa de vida no teu coração. Eu me cobrei um pau, é João, é José, espinho na mão, no corpo no pé. São as águas de março, fechando o verão, é promessa de vida no teu coração. É pau, é pedra, é o fim do caminho, o resto de topo, é um pouco sozinho. É uma paz e uma ponte, sabe amarrar, de Belo Horizonte, no livro de sal. As águas de março, fechando o verão, é promessa de vida no teu coração. Era e no caminho, te tocou, pouco sozinho, salva as águas de março, fechando o verão, é promessa de vida no teu coração.
Thank you, Wendy and Steve. As always, you were great. Really appreciate it. And this is just a sign we can't do the work that we're doing alone. It really takes a lot of helpers. It takes a village, a community, and regulators and lawmakers. And we have two of them joining us here this evening, and we are so thankful for everything they do. Senator Ben Cardin has devoted his entire life to public service. He's a third-generation Marylander, went to University of Maryland Law School, and worked for many years in the Maryland General Assembly before being elected first to represent the 3rd District of Maryland, and then eventually as our Maryland State Senator. In this role, he's been tremendously helpful in everything related to air, water, funding for the Chesapeake, as well as championing everything that really is important to having good, safe, healthy communities. We're so thankful to have him here and to be able to work with him. And I love the fact that his office is so open. When there are issues I want to talk about, I can always get in, talk to him and his excellent staff. And they really care about making things great for us. Likewise, Senator Tim Kaine from Virginia has devoted his career to public service as well. He is a huge sponsor of good legislation for air and water for the Chesapeake Bay, ensuring that we have the funding we need to keep going with the cleanup plan. And all around, another just wonderful person and delightful to work with. So I'd like to invite Senator Ben Cardin.
Okay. Hi, Betsy.
Hi, Senator.
I think we can now hear each other. First
Yes.
of all, Betsy, thank you so much. Wendy and Steve, thanks for that music. It inspired us. It's great to be on with all of you. The Riverkeepers are incredibly important to the Chesapeake Bay and our way of life. And I do want you to know, one of my fondest memories is being with the South River Waterkeepers, and we were kayaking, checking oyster beds, and we had a great day. I got a little bit dirty, but that was okay, and we just had a great time working on the South River. So thank you for what you do every day for the quality of our waters. We want swimmable, healthy, fishable waters in our state. And you are certainly one of the top priorities for Team Maryland. And I include in that my colleagues from Virginia, Senator Kaine and Senator Warner. Senator Van Hollen and I work very closely with the Chesapeake Bay senators in order to deal with water quality issues. And so thank you. I just really wanted you to know that you are part of our top priority. The Chesapeake Bay is by far one of our principal priorities in our federal team, working with Team Maryland. Some good news, because as Betsy started off, it's been a tough year. It's been a tough year for so many reasons, but some good news. The Chesapeake Bay Reauthorization Act was passed by the United States Senate at $92 million, an increase from the authorized level of $40 million and an increase from the appropriated levels. So we are showing progress in expanding the federal government's role in dealing with clean water. I can also tell you we were able to pass the Chesapeake Bay Gateway and Watershed Network Act. That's another very important program that provides help for the Chesapeake Bay and for our waters on the Chesapeake Bay, our rivers. So it provides funding in each of these categories. It's bipartisan. The Chesapeake Bay Reauthorization was authored by me and Senator Capito from West Virginia. So we're seeing some very positive signs. We recognize that clean water is a continuing challenge that we have in our nation. We're working on a Water Resources Development Act that will deal with our aging wastewater infrastructure, dealing with resiliency and climate issues, recognizing that we have these challenges today that we must meet. You are the front lines. The information you get to us, what you do on the waters themselves in order to protect our rivers and waters is so critically important to our efforts to provide clean, safe water to the people of our region and to have, as I said, fishable and swimmable rivers. So I just wanted you to know we are very much supportive of all of your efforts. This really is a team effort. You have our federal delegation committed to doing everything we can. And I know I speak for Senator Van Hollen and Senator Warner and Senator Kaine in thanking you for everything you do for our community. Keep up the good work.
Thank you so much, Senator Cardin. Let's see if we can get the audio fixed on this.
From safely disposing of 28 million tons of toxic coal ash stored on the banks of our rivers to conducting groundbreaking research on the Senator Tim Kaine here. Thanks for inviting me to speak with you today so I can highlight the great work Virginia Riverkeepers have done to protect our environment. Waterkeepers Chesapeake has done incredible work over the years to fight for restoration, stopping pollution, and organizing regional clean water campaigns. The three riverkeepers in Virginia on the James, Potomac, and Shenandoah rivers have made a huge difference in Virginia through the significant pollution fighting and restoration work that they've done. From safely disposing of 28 million tons of toxic coal ash stored on the banks of our rivers to conducting groundbreaking research on the dangers facing local aquatic life, the work Virginia Riverkeepers are doing has profound impacts in our fight against rising environmental threats. On top of the climate crisis, the COVID-19 health crisis has further underscored the importance of resilient and sustainable local communities to protect our health, economies, and well-being. Your commitment to protect
Seems like our video here got stuck. Should we go ahead and move forward and see if we can figure out the problem behind the scenes? This is just an excellent example of some of the challenges that a bunch of us who are used to doing things in person have been facing with getting very familiar with Zoom and all other media sources. So we have some other special guests as well. As I mentioned, we cannot do this work without people like Senators Kaine and Cardin, as well as many of our local champions on both sides of the aisle. But our communities and our waterkeepers are really so central to what we do. But we also have great people like Mark Steiner, who previously joined us. And then our next person for me to introduce is Michael Buckley, who's going to be presenting some of our awards. Many of you in the region probably know Michael, as he's been hosting Voices of the Chesapeake for many years, and is just a great voice on the radio, nice person to work with, and has really a long list of awards for all of the great things he's been able to contribute over time to discussions and to bringing forward new issues. We also have actor and activist Chad Lowe, who, although he was not born or directly from our beautiful Chesapeake region, his wife is. And so he knows the area and loves it like we do. He's an Emmy Award actor for some of his television work. He's been in television and film for many years, and we're delighted to have both of them with us here to recognize some of the amazing champions who've been out there fighting for your waterways. Michael?
Well, thank you very much. It's great to be a part of this, and it takes me back. I just wanted to mention to kind of when I started on the radio, it's about the time the Riverkeeper movement was getting into gear. And there was 4 or 5 Riverkeeper programs that were started. Leading the way was the Chester River Riverkeeper. And as an award, as you guys know how this goes, for those programs coming together, all the Riverkeepers came together at Washington College, and we had a visit from Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who had, of course, co-written the book Riverkeeper, and I was chosen to do an interview with him, and I've been grateful to continue to play that interview on and off throughout the 21 years of the Voices of the Chesapeake Bay interview series on 103.1 WRNR. So thank you so much for, once again, I counted 9 Riverkeepers I've interviewed as the pictures were going by a little while ago. And there's always an opportunity for the Riverkeepers to come on my show and have about 20 minutes to really have an insightful conversation about what's going on with the Bay. And like Mark was trying to do, what do the Riverkeepers actually do? What are their great challenges? So today I've been charged with giving out a couple of awards. And the first one here is known in some circles as the WOW Award. Each year, Waterkeepers Chesapeake awards the Waterkeeper Outstanding Win or WOW Award to a waterkeeper, or in last year's case, waterkeepers, who have made an exceptional contribution to the work of protecting clean water in our region. This year's winner is often referred to as our region's native son. He spent nearly 20 years protecting and restoring the waters of the Patuxent River. He was raised in Upper Marlboro, Maryland, on the farm his great-grandfather purchased at a time when land ownership by Black men and women was still a rarity in this country. Today, he still lives on that farm, not far from the Patuxent, demonstrating a love for both the land and the river that runs deep. Despite fond memories of growing up by the Patuxent, it was his family's move to Sierra Leone and then Tanzania that truly sparked his interest in water. Riding the riverboats up the rural inland waterways was the perfect exposure to how those communities relied on that water for nearly every aspect of their lives. As he recalls it, they were the lifeblood of these isolated communities. And after spending nearly 25 years working as a journalist covering stories around the world with CBS, ITN, CNN, and the BBC, among others, he made the lifelong altering decision to enroll in law school. Now, it wasn't until a chance meeting with a former Chesapeake waterkeeper that he decided to read Bobby Kennedy Jr. and John Cronin's book, The Riverkeepers. And he was so impressed by the successful work that they were taking on, including government bureaucrats and taking on powerful corporate polluters, that he realized becoming a waterkeeper would be his best avenue for protecting the river that meant so much to him and to so many others. To him, the fight for clean water was a perfect vehicle for achieving equity and a more just society. In 2004, he founded Patuxent Riverkeeper and hasn't looked back since. For more than 2 decades, he's been a shining example of what it means to be committed to environmental justice, often taking on difficult cases against polluters and other threats to clean water in the Patuxent River watershed. In 2016, he led Patuxent Riverkeeper in filing a Title VI civil rights complaint that ultimately led to proposed regulations from the Public Service Commission. As part of the application for a public certificate of necessity and convenience, these regulations require enhanced public participation and notice requirements for new or expanding power plants, including any associated infrastructure, as well as a requirement that companies conduct an environmental justice screening and report the results. The Title VI complaint was filed on the basis of the Maryland Department of the Environment, Public Service Commission, and Department of Natural Resources issuing a certificate of public necessity and convenience for the expansion of the Mattawoman gas-powered plant in a predominantly Black area of the state. Realizing the potential impact of such an expansion on the environment, as well as the lives of those groups adjacent to the plant, he immediately stepped in and was successful in protecting those communities. And there are many stories like this that highlight the importance of his work, as well as his expertise in helping to ensure that the Patuxent and its communities are resilient for generations to come. It's my honor to present the 2020 Waterkeeper Win or WOW Award to the one and only Fred Tutman, Patuxent Riverkeeper. Congratulations, Fred.
Thank you. Wow. Wow is wow. It's like I went to sleep 17 years ago and just woke up. I mean, seriously, no one's ever told the story of my life in front of me like that in my entire life. It was a lot to hear, and I just, wow, I've been busy. Well, thank you, Michael. Thank you so much. I'll be very, very succinct here. I just want to say, I am so grateful to be in a movement that has put up with me and allowed me pretty much to be myself for the last 17 years, because I know very well that's a lot to put up with sometimes. So I'm really grateful to have a bigger family than my original family. And thank you for this award. It's a lot to think about, because like I said, I just woke up after 17 years and someone told me what I've been doing the last 17 years and I hadn't thought about it because I was so busy doing it. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fred. You make us all better.
And by the way, I think the award is actually at the office. They sent me a picture of some mail that came in from you guys. So in the era of COVID, that's how I get my mail, is over a text.
No worries. I'm glad you'll be getting it soon.
So where are we in the program here?
Yeah, I think it's time for our raffle winner. Ghazi?
Hi. Howdy, y'all. Good evening. Welcome. And so, without much ado, because we are running behind, I'm going to announce our raffle winner. And it is Jen Aosa. I hope I said your name right. I'm so sorry if I butchered your last name, but it is Jen Aosa. If you're on the call, you're the winner of the Patagonia raffle. You'll be getting it sent directly to your address that you used to sign up for your raffle tickets. So enjoy. And with that, I'm going to pass it back on to Michael. And he'll be introducing our next award winner, which is the Water Warrior Award, our local champion.
Here we go again. Hey, by the way, Fred and I are going to sit for an interview tomorrow, so be sure to tune in to the show. It's every Sunday morning between 7 and 10 on 103.1 WRNR, and it streams live as the show's going on. A new addition to the Waterkeepers Chesapeake's award roster, the Water Warrior Award, is designed to honor an individual or group that has supported one of our Waterkeeper members in accomplishing an important clean water win or success. This year's winner was nominated by Waterkeepers Chesapeake member organization, Assateague Coastal Trust. Evolving from a loosely organized Backbone Corridor Neighbors Association in Somerset County, this organization came together in 2015 to fight a 14-house poultry concentrated animal feeding operation, or CAFOS, located in Wacomico County, Maryland. This CAFO was going to be built on top of the drinking water source aquifer in a community that was made up of 80% African-American residents. Founding members, Monica Brooks and Gabrielle Gabi Ross, also lived near the proposed CAFO, which ultimately made this work extremely personal for the group. Soon, the Backbone Corridor Neighbors Association expanded to help other communities on the lower shore that were also being impacted by the sudden growth of huge industrial scale poultry CAFOs that were forever changing their rural landscape and presenting numerous public health concerns. Thanks to partnership with the Wacomico County NAACP, the Assateague Coastal Trust, Food and Water Watch, Socially Responsible Agricultural Project, the Center for Progressive Reform, and legal teams from the Environmental Action Center, the group was able to assemble the necessary resources to effectively and sustainably grow their grassroots organization. Over the past 5 years, this organization has engaged a diverse community of citizens to push back against environmental injustice on the lower shore, to advocate for and win important zoning ordinance changes to protect rural communities, to win its case to stop the 14-house poultry CAFO, and to introduce the Community Health Air Act, plus to hold numerous town hall events to educate, inform, and engage communities on the lower shore. And also to spawn the creation of a new grassroots organization in Worcester County, right? Now, that is also committed to engaging citizens in public health, clean water, and clean air advocacy. Today, this organization continues to be a representative voice for suburban and rural communities on the Lower Eastern Shore on issues that include environmental justice, workers' rights, keeping steady pressure on the poultry industry to be better to their neighbors. It's with great excitement and gratitude for all their hard work that I present this award to the concerned citizens against industrial CAFOs. Congratulations.
I know, Gabby, we can't hear you. You might, if you want to, I think I sent you, now you should be good. There you go. Oh no, it went off again. Sorry, Gabby. Welcome to Zoom times. Are you able to select? There we go, there we go. All right, can you try to speak now? No. Oh, okay, Gabby, we're gonna try to figure out what's going on. Sorry about that. Hey, Monica, are you able to speak? Oh no, where's your sound now? I'm gonna send you a request. Okay, Monica, I think you should have sound now. Oh no, we can't hear you guys. I'm so sorry. Oh, the technical difficulties. I'm so sorry. Monica and Gabby, we can't hear you all. We are so sorry. We're going to try to figure out what the technical issue is and see if we can get you guys back on in a second. So we're just going to try
I think
figure
mine's working now.
Yes. Okay, great. Go get up to you. There you go, Gabby.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everybody. I just want to quickly, briefly, I know we don't have a lot of time. Nobody knew what this group was going to become. You know, I was just like an angry citizen that happened to live off of Northwest Road at the time of this, and sent out a bunch of angry letters to all my neighbors, you know, like, hey, we got to do something about this. And I don't think anybody would have ever thought that it would have became such a movement. We fought against so many battles and hurdles, and just, you know, so many groups were involved in everything that we did. And honestly, it wasn't just Monica and I. I think Monica and I are the famous faces of the group, but we had so many citizens, like hundreds of people that were helping us in different areas and getting involved. And honestly, I just really want to thank all of them too. Monica and I might have been the big angry voices that everybody heard on the news and on Facebook and everything like that. But honestly, it was a huge group effort. And I just want to thank everybody for that as well.
I'm so sorry, Monica. We still can't hear you. Do you have a microphone in? Do you have headphones in by any chance? No. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Click that orange button, Monica. See if it works.
Yeah, it says your sound is on. I'm sorry. Well, maybe we can get, if your sound comes back on in a little bit, maybe we can, yes, we see the mouthing of thank you, and and we appreciate it. Yeah, no problem. And so with that, we're gonna move on to the next award, and I'm going to bring on the wonderful and amazing, and thank you, Monica and Gabby, for all your hard work. We really appreciate all the great work you're doing for clean water and our environment. And now I'm going to bring on our wonderful special guest, Mr. Chad Lowe, who will be presenting our next award. So if Monica and Gabby want to close your cameras out, and we will bring Chad on. All right, Chad, if you want to unmute yourself, if you can. Let's see, are you unmuted? Oops, went back on. There we go. There we go. Welcome.
Can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you.
Okay. I feel like I should be accepting this award on behalf of Monica. I'm really honored to be here. This is so inspiring. It's so uplifting to see and hear all of you that are working hard to protect the waterways, especially in a time when we all are so desperate for good news. And hearing the senator announce that the funding had been increased was also such great news as well. I'm here on behalf of the Waterkeepers Chesapeake. They've asked me to present an award, and I'm very honored. We're going to be giving an award to the Waterkeeper Alliance. And I am very familiar with the work that Waterkeeper Alliance does. I was just really taken hearing Gabby speak, and it reminded me of one of the things that I was so impressed about Waterkeeper as I started to learn more about what the organization does, is how it's grassroots and how it is someone who is just fed up, a group of people who have decided enough is enough, who are taking action, who are working on a grassroots level. The kind of everyday heroes who make this organization so powerful and so impactful. So Monica and Gabby, it was incredible to hear. I love that you said you were just an angry citizen. That's kind of like what we all are on some level. But I am aware of the work that Waterkeeper Alliance does, how they empower communities to take charge and take responsibility for their water. One of the things that struck me early on was hearing Bobby Kennedy speak and talking about how our waterways are part of the public trust and they belong to everybody. So as I was bouncing in and out between my kids upstairs doing their Zoom schooling, which has just been very interesting, to say the least, I was able to listen a bit to the panel. And I was really inspired to hear that there's a real dedication to adding more diversity to this movement and to environmental issues, because as we all know, so often it's many of our diverse communities that are so directly impacted by the polluting, by the rule breaking, and so. I live in Los Angeles and I surf. I'm from Ohio, so I'm kind of a Midwestern surfer. And there's a thing called localism when you surf, and that is that people who live on the beach or close to the beach claim the surf break as their own. And I've always felt that was a real problem, because really what you want in Los Angeles are people who live in Burbank and Pasadena and other communities to feel and understand and know that that ocean belongs as much to them as it does to someone who happens to be fortunate enough to live closer to the ocean. I'm just so taken by what Waterkeeper Alliance has done to empower and to support all of these local organizations throughout the world to protect waterways. And to get to that position of respect within an environmental justice community, it's really, as we know, no small feat. It takes discipline and coordination and grit, determination. Those qualities are found all throughout Waterkeeper Alliance staff of clean water professionals, with a common, unwavering commitment to ensuring that water sources in the entire world are swimmable, fishable, and I think most importantly, drinkable. That same commitment is behind many of the incredible acts of support and assistance that Waterkeeper Alliance has provided to its members. For instance, the Waterkeeper Alliance's rapid response team quickly jumped into action to help waterkeepers facing serious environmental crises. And here are a few examples: sending in a team to help the James River keeper address the derailment of a crude oil transportation train that spilled and exploded into the beautiful James River in 2014. Waterkeeper Alliance was there to help with the toxic spill in West Virginia's Elk River, also in 2014, that shut down the drinking water supply to 300,000 people in Charleston. Also helping all of the wonderful waterkeepers in North Carolina when Hurricane Matthew hit, and there was this awful flooding of all of the hog farm operations that spilled into the waterways. tributaries and water and the water supplies, also washing the dead hogs into the communities. They were there to jump into action right away. And I know they've done a lot in relation to the coal ash problems and suing and winning a lot of great victories. So the other thing I wanted to say on behalf of the Chesapeake, Waterkeepers Chesapeake, is just is to pay a little debt of gratitude to all the hard work that you all do. My wife is from Maryland, and we get to go back and spend a little time there each summer, and I'm always taken by the beauty and the vastness that is the Chesapeake watershed, and just how many areas of body there are to protect, and how vital the Chesapeake is to, really the identity of our nation. So thank you so much. I'm just always blown away by how incredibly beautiful it is, and I want to thank you personally, each and every one of you, on my own behalf and my family's behalf, for being great stewards of that watershed. So here we are in 2020, and another crisis has hit, and this is one that none of us could have prepared for. But Waterkeeper Alliance refocused their work on what Waterkeeper members and organizations needed most, which was help responding to the pandemic that we're all facing. Waterkeeper Alliance staff and leadership immediately zoned in on how they could be of greater resource and support to Waterkeeper members during the COVID-19 pandemic. They were the first source for all the information Waterkeeper members and groups really needed. Some of the helpful and much needed services that the Waterkeeper Alliance provided included hosting executive director roundtables that met twice weekly to discuss various organizational issues and concerns, sending out resources about the CARES Act and how it applies to nonprofits. In fact, Waterkeeper Alliance Communication Director and Marketing Director, Maya Raposo, sent thorough and comprehensive weekly emails for the first several weeks of the pandemic crisis, providing assistance to the Waterkeeper organizations as they applied for payroll protection program loans. They shared helpful information and communications about best practices and tips for hosting virtual meetings and events like this, and maintaining individual and staff well-being through exercise and other forms of self-care, which I'm guessing meant getting out into nature and enjoying the hard work that everybody is doing. They continue to host webinars on relevant topics and skill training related to dealing with work, providing programs during a pandemic, and tools for ensuring your nonprofit can overcome the challenges brought on by this pandemic. So these are just a few of the ways that Waterkeeper Alliance has been a source of strength and hope and help during this pandemic for all of its waterkeepers throughout the country and the world. And it's because of this hard work and unrelenting dedication to clean water advocacy and advancing environmental justice that Waterkeepers Chesapeake is presenting this award to Waterkeeper Alliance today. Now, without further ado, please join me in honoring Waterkeeper Alliance with this award for their outstanding support and service to Waterkeepers Chesapeake and its member programs. Waterkeeper Alliance's Communication and Marketing Director, Maya Raposo, will now be accepting this award on their behalf. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Chad. Can you guys all hear me?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Chad. And just on behalf of the entire Alliance team, thank you to Waterkeepers Chesapeake and really everyone in the movement that is acknowledging this. We have this really beautiful award, which I gasped a little when I opened it because it really is an incredibly gorgeous piece. Thank you. I think really, I just want to acknowledge, I think how hard, and I know a lot of people have acknowledged this tonight, just how hard this entire year has been, both professionally and personally, and how I don't think any of us were really prepared going into it, how it was going to go. So when in the very early days of the pandemic, we were thinking about how to do the core function of Waterkeeper Alliance, which is to support our members, we really just acted right away to think about how we could acknowledge how difficult this was and how we could provide support and some words of hope around all of this. I think if there's any way to describe Waterkeepers, it is resilient and perseverant. And so, of course, everyone in the Waterkeeper movement figured out how to adapt, how to move forward, how to continue the work for the fight for clean water. And I think, you know, whether that was sending daily emails or giving information about fundraising or how to move your education programs online, some of our Waterkeepers even took it upon themselves to deliver groceries to the elderly in their community. We were really there to just try and support them and to try and find ways to help them keep going. One Waterkeeper wrote into one of our emails saying, there's a lot of information that you're sharing, but more than that, it feels like a lifeline, so thank you. And that means more to us than anything, and so does this award and just any recognition of the support that we've tried to give. So we are so incredibly humbled and grateful and gracious, and thank you so much for this recognition. It truly means the world to us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Maya. Thank you, Waterkeeper Alliance, for all you do. We're just so appreciative for Chad for joining us, the senators. We're gonna just mention, and I will let you know again that the senator's video that you weren't able to hear, Tim Kaine's, we're gonna share that with you after the event. So no worries there. But before I just talk to you all more about our 40K in 40 Days campaign, I just want to take a moment to recognize and thank each and every one of you that is joining us today. Even for the folks that joined us and weren't able to stay through to the end. It's because of you that our team at Waterkeepers Chesapeake and our exceptional Waterkeepers are working tirelessly day in and day out to protect this universally important and precious resource, water. As I just learned a few moments ago, it looks like, thanks to our wonderful Cindy Wallace, our Waterkeepers Chesapeake's administrative manager, who has been checking and updating us on these numbers this whole time, I just found out that we are now at $9,355. Wow. Wow. $93.55. That is awesome. That is more than 20% of the way towards our goal. Though we have a long way to go, but that is amazing and incredible. And it's just a testament to how much all of you care so much about clean water and support the work that Waterkeepers Chesapeake is doing. We're so grateful to have you on our side, and we're just so pleased with your commitment to this work. So I just want to quickly move along because I know we have only about 5 minutes left. And one of the things I really want to just touch on is how crucial our work is right now more than ever. One of the numbers that I've heard and used quite a bit is that in this country right now, we have over 2 million people who do not have equitable access to clean water. And we know that there are millions and millions of people who are now out of work, who are now facing tremendous challenges, losses. And the last thing I think anyone wants to be worrying about while dealing with this pandemic is where are they going to be able to access clean water? How are they going to be able to enjoy it recreationally? And unfortunately, that's the reality. And while we don't have the numbers to show that right now, we do know that there are many people that are probably losing access to clean water right now as we speak. That stated, we are also still working very, very hard behind the scenes at Waterkeepers Chesapeake to ensure that the Clean Water Act is upheld, especially our specific works on the Conowingo Dam Settlement Agreement. We are still trying our best to continue to prevent Exelon Corporation from shifting that over $6 billion worth of responsibility over to you and I as the taxpayers in Maryland. And we're also just really working hard on being able to support our waterkeepers even more. So right now, what we're really focusing on with this $40,000 campaign goal for our $40,000 in 40K in 40 days campaign is to help us be able to do that work as effectively as possible. We're getting closer to the end of the year, and at this time, we would have raised close to $40,000 at a typical In Defense of Water event. So that is where we came up with that number. And it is really a strategic number that we know will help us be set up for success. So as always, as I've mentioned, even at my year-end appeal, when I was emailing all of you or some of you who are joining us today, you know, I don't ever ask anyone something that I wouldn't do myself. And so one of the things I wanted to do is to offer my pledge for support this year. So I'm going to be donating $48, and of course, I'll round it up to 50. But I want to donate $48 in honor of the Clean Water Act, which is 48 years old today. It was signed in 1972. Jimmy Carter is one of our stalwarts of that work and that act, that law, and I think it means so much to me. Clean Water Act is what we use as Waterkeepers Chesapeake to really defend a lot of the rights that we as community members have to the clean water and accessible water. So that is my pledge to Waterkeepers Chesapeake, and I hope you'll join me in making a pledge that is symbolic of what clean water means to you. So as you, I believe it should be in our chat. Maybe we'll share the link again in our chat for our donate. So I am offering this as an opportunity. I don't want to call anyone out, but please take a moment if you haven't. Think about what clean water means to you. We even have a comment section at the link for the donate, the donation link. Share what clean water means to you. Tell us more about what clean water means to you today. Who are you donating in honor of? Who are you celebrating clean water with? And with that, I am at the very end. I'm going to shut my mouth, give it to Betsy to wrap us up. And again, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We could not have done this or had this event without you or do the work that we do without you. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Gazi. That was great. And the whole event really has been, I know, I wish, I'm sure you do too, that we were together in person, and hopefully we all can be next year. But we've had an amazing group of musicians, actors, politicians, radio hosts join us for this event, as well as our amazing water keepers. And there's one other group that we haven't recognized yet. And so I'd like to ask the fantastic staff if they can just join me on camera for a moment so you can all see all of them. They're working every day to protect the local streams, rivers of the Chesapeake, and to help support our water keepers to ensure drinkable, swimmable, and fishable waters throughout the entire Chesapeake Bay. So our team is our Deputy Director, Robin, our Development Manager, Gazi. Oh, you know, all the little faces keep moving. Our man behind the scenes for all of this, Bernard, Shelby, who's joining us from vacation, who runs our Fair Farms campaign, our newest member, Morgan, our staff attorney, and Cindy, our amazing administrative manager, who's doing all the math behind the scenes and also helping us run this great show. So thank you everyone who's donated. Thank you to Mom's Organic Market for donating. Thank you to everyone who's helped us get over $9,000 on our way. If you haven't, there's still time. So feel free to donate in whatever amount, whatever you can do. We greatly appreciate it. And we are going to send you out this evening with all of our musicians joining together in a song that they have written specifically for this event. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Howdy, folks. Well, that was a lot of fun. I wanted to tell you that Otis Redding performed in Annapolis many times at the Cars Beach, the black resort that hosted folks on the Chitlin circuit from Ella Fitzgerald all the way up to Little Richie. And he wrote Sitting on the Dock on the Bay about San Francisco Bay, but he sang it on the Chesapeake Bay. And I modified the lyrics a little bit to talk about river keepers, because the tools of the river keeper when they're gathering data are the Secchi disc that they lower down to monitor water clarity, and the YSI monitor, which is an electronic device that they can record dissolved oxygen and salinity and all kinds of other parameters. So this is a song about what the water keeper does all day long. Sitting in the morning sun, I'll be sitting when the evening comes. Lower down my Secchi and then I pull it back up again. Yeah, I'm sitting on a boat on the bay, gathering data all long day. Sitting on the boat on the bay with my YSI.
Left the dock this morning, headed for the Chesapeake Bay, 'cause that's what I live for, and I'm gonna help to save it someday. So I'm just gonna sit on the boat on the bay, watch the pollution roll away. Yeah, I'm sitting on a boat on the bay with my YSI.
Well, it looked like nothing was gonna change. Then as water keepers came to save the day, I can't do it all by myself, but working together we can find a way.
Well, I'm sitting here to measure DO, and the oxygen is in the red zone. 27 more sites to go before I can start heading for home now.
Sitting on the dock on the bay, gathering data all the long day. I'm sitting on a boat on the bay with my YSI. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Steve. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks.
Signing off from South Mountain.
Awesome.
Next year we'll be together.
Thank you all. Really appreciate it. Thanks for everyone for attending.